Got it.
I just booked the bed.
Okay, so let's go ahead. It is indeed 5 o'clock.
Indeed.
And for those of you out there in virtual land, we have Billy.
A reminder, lucky is medicine.
We are
Your other pillow.
hybrid. So if you hear us talking, we're
I'm
not
not
talking to
everybody.
ourselves.
Hey, could happen.
We're talking to Billy's dog, who has gone Nandi.
He's just trying to get that hot chocolate now.
He drank
Our-
my hot chocolate.
Our dog is drinking hot chocolate, so we may have to make a run to the vet here.
No, it's only dark chocolate.
Well, it's dark chocolate.
Well,
perfect
how
out.
much? It'd have to be a shit ton.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not. He'll be fine.
He'll be fine.
Thank
Strong.
you. We got some other dog lovers here.
Well,
They're notorious for. So I'm going to go ahead and get it started. I am putting very little prep into these things because they're long meditations, and so we don't need a lot of background or a lot of fillers or anything else. As far as listening, it's almost a lost art. Part of the setup from yesterday was the fact that in our heads, we are constantly,
Good
Oh,
dog.
no, he just snorted at us in disgust because we took the coffee away from him. He's worse than a kid with a damn cell phone.
Okay, get out.
He,
Go to
he
your
is
bed.
bound and determined
Go.
to cause trouble today. You may get invited to go to the house, Sugar. So, as we said yesterday, for those of you who weren't here, we were looking at the fact that our head is constantly rehearsing what we're going to say next, even when we think we're listening to people, so that we don't really absorb it. So getting instruction on how to be present really retrains your brain in a lot of things. And one of the things that we have lost is that sense of continuity in time. We're so distracted, we're moving from this to this to this to this. And it turns out that that background feeling of spaciousness that you get when you're at the ocean or that you get when you're up in the mountains is essential to retraining the brain to a sense of safety. It's that uninterrupted period where nothing's requiring your attention. You're not having to respond to anybody's needs. There's no demand system out there that enables that monkey mind to kind of relax. And that's why extended meditations are so important. And I know people go, oh God, I could never be in a silent meditation for 4 days. Yes, you could. And as a matter of fact, it's almost essential if you really want to have any kind of enduring peace or from the monkey mind to cultivate that habit of learning to be quiet, to find that inner stillness. So we're going to be looking a lot at recovering that inner feeling of spaciousness, which is always there. That's your true nature. So we're going to be playing around with that some too, that we're identifying always with the content that's going on. We're never identifying with that background awareness, which in the Eastern traditions, that witness consciousness, that as far as I know, and Billy can tell me, did any of your psychology classes talk about witness awareness?
No.
Okay, so witness awareness still really hasn't come into Western psychology as a factor, and yet it's absolutely essential to give us sort of the lever to re-enter our experience and begin to take control of what's going on in there. And paradoxically, we take control by letting go of control. So learning how to listen is an essential part of learning how to be responsive, because if I haven't heard, how can I respond? And that was a fundamental part of training. I was lucky, if you've ever seen a book called Focusing by a guy named Gene Genlin. Gene was a Rogerian therapist and he taught at the University of Chicago while I was there, and he was a part of the same meditation group. We had the same guru, and he developed a group called Changes, which we had at my church in Chicago, which was a reflective listening group, and it was peer led, so that we would pair up and she would listen, and she would repeat back what she heard until I felt heard. And it's amazing how many people can't do that. We do so much interjection, speculation, think we know what the other person means by what they're saying, that we don't hear.
We did that at my yoga teacher training.
Yeah, okay.
Because we're communicators, basically. So
So-
it was conscious communication.
So again, if you operate on the premise that all of that out there is also sentient and also sovereign, we honor it by listening. And in AA, we have a saying that praying is talking to God and meditation is sitting and listening to the answer, that if we don't take the time to listen, we don't get the full benefit. So let's see what Adya's got to say, and when we come back, we'll do a little bit more dialoguing about what he's got to offer.
Okay.
I would also recommend any of you sitting on cushions, when you're doing an extended meditation, it really helps to get higher in your seat because it fatigues your hips and your knees less. So I have a bigger bolster underneath me, a little bit wider support for the hips. Billy, if you want to stack.
Or he's going to lie down,
He's going to
maybe.
lie down. Okay.
I
I'll
probably
quit
am. I'm going to
bothering you.
lie down. It's 35 minutes. And I felt like last week I probably
Should have
hit my
lemon.
25-minute hips. So, yeah, just
Make
make
yourselves
yourself comfortable.
We don't want your body to distract from your capacity to listen because it's yelling loudly.
That's right. So what just happened?
And so in that sense, it's a different day than other kinds of teaching forums that I do. It's really a day to endeavor to just kind of relax your mind.
Is that loud enough?
Y'all hear okay?
And we're really endeavoring to switch over to a different kind of orientation. I suppose you could sum meditation up as the art of listening. Really what it is, to open our whole being to listening, to really being deeply available, and listening with your mind, with your awareness, with your body, with your senses. So it's a deep state of availability. And so all the more energetic, or I suppose you could almost even say energetic or aggressive ways of approaching spirituality, it's sort of an opportunity to put those down. And I've always seen meditation as a kind of, in one sense, it's an act of trust. It takes a kind of trust to stop thinking about things. It takes a kind of trust that maybe things can fall into place when you're not trying to make them fall into place, when you're not trying to understand them or figure it out or solve a particular problem. It takes a kind of trust to suspend that part of the mental makeup for a little while. Even to suspend it for an hour is a lot to ask, but we're endeavoring to suspend it as much as possible for the better part of a day. And so my hope is that when I do give a little guidance, as I will do in this first meditation in a few minutes, that that you kind of listen to it more like you'd listen to the rain outside. So you don't listen to it where your mind's kind of searching for information. Because here's the truth of meditation. There's no secret. There's no secret. There's no secret way. There's no secret method that's going to suddenly make it all easy. It can get really easy, but it gets easy if you get easy. And it gets really simple when you get really simple. And outside of that, there's no secret. There's no shortcut. It's just what it is. It's an opportunity to get easy and to get simple. And so for the modern mind, that's a kind of act of trust, or at least curiosity to see what happens when you stop trying to make something happen, you know? And so the whole way that I frame meditation is it's really a way to allow your true nature to express itself. That's really all it is. And so it's not a means to an end. That makes it frustrating. It's not an effort to get from where you are to where you want to be. It's a way of allowing something in you to kind of come forward into consciousness. Something quiet to come forward. And so if you think of it, like I said, like a way that you're endeavoring to allow your true nature, your deepest inner nature to express itself, it's a very different way to think about meditation than as any kind of a means to an end. You're just endeavoring to open up and let something express itself that generally we discount. You know, we often don't let the more quiet places inside express themselves, which is really just a way of, just for them to be as they are, just to be quiet. And so really that's what meditation is. And as I said in the last course that I taught on meditation just recently, is meditation is an art. It's an art. That's why it can be suggested what meditation is or how to go about it. But essentially it's an art. It's something you get the hang of, you get the feel of. As long as you're trying to do it correctly, you can't get the hang of it. You can't get the feel of it. You got to kind of relax a little bit to sort of get the hang of it and get the feel of it. So we're going to start this morning with about a half an hour guided meditation. And this is just sort of think of it as the basics of meditation. But when I say basics, don't think it means rudimentary. Because what you find the more you meditate is you realize the rudimentary stuff is actually the advanced stuff. So this isn't like, learning something in school where you work yourself up to the PhD program. This is the opposite. You're trying to work yourself backwards, but down into kindergarten. And down into simplicity, not so much into complexity. So the first guided meditation that we're going to do together is, if you just think of it, this is sort of the foundation of any meditation that I would teach. This is basically the foundation of it all. And just be easy with it. Okay, so we'll just start with about a half an hour of meditation. And so before I even get into much of the guidance, it's really very useful to have some sort of physical grounding to your meditation, because it gives you something other than your mind to focus on. And it will also give you this reference point you can return to anytime you might get lost for a little bit. And so generally it's good just to start any period of meditation just by, you can kind of feel the energy, if you will, start to descend from your mind, from your head. And if you just allow yourself to have the feeling of this sort of energy just, or attention just descending from the mind, and it descends down into the chest, and then it just kind of comes down into the lower part of the belly or abdomen. And you just notice the breath in the abdomen. You're not trying to change it. You're not trying to alter it. It just gives attention something other to focus on for a few moments, other than the mind, other than thought. So you're just taking the attention that would often get lost in thought, and you're just resting it in the bottom of the breath, right in the bottom of the belly. And as you take a few minutes to attend to the breath, just kind of feel throughout the body a kind of encouragement for your body to really relax. So if there's any places where you feel like you're holding tension, you just notice it. If it's in the arm or shoulder or the back, and you just notice it if there's any tension, and you just invite it to relax. You may notice that the body tends to relax with the out breath. And everything is very light. When I say to attend to the breath, it's a very light touch. You're not really focusing on it. You're not concentrating too much. The art of meditation is to have just a light touch, a sense of ease. So you're just very lightly noticing the breath, encouraging the body to relax. And letting just your whole overall attitude become soft. Sometimes if you notice your attitude, sometimes it can be tense or in a rush, or maybe a little agitated. It's still trying to settle in. But allow even your attitude to become soft and easy and relaxed. You're just relaxing into that breath. And the breath is kind of an anchor point. I think of it like the ballast in the bottom of a boat. That place in you physically, as it were, sort of between heaven and earth, is the breath in the belly, is the mid part of the body. And because the breath is always there, it may get very faint at times if you get deep into meditation, but essentially it's always there. And so at any point throughout the day, at any point throughout any meditation, if you start to feel a bit lost, or your mind gets more active, the breath is there. You can just notice the breath. And just doing that will just bring attention out of the mind. So the breath is always there. It's not a concept, it's not an idea, so it's dependable, it's always there. And you may notice just by attending to the breathing process, it changes your whole nervous system, starts to calm down. Takes you out of that fight or flight part of your nervous system and your brain. And just the breath will take you into a more calm state. And so when I was learning to meditate, I spent some years just attending to the breath. And once you establish a little bit of attentiveness with the breath, during any meditation period, if your mind gets active, you'll tend to notice your breathing change even before you notice your mind is active, because your breathing pattern will change depending on the state of your consciousness or the state of your awareness. So if you start thinking, your breath will tend to start to move upward into the chest. It will tend to get heavier. And that'll just tell you you're probably lost in thought. So there's really three aspects to meditation that I want to point out. And I think of these as commitments, because meditation, if you think of every time you sit down to meditate, if you think of it as a commitment, that you're committing to something, if there's no commitment, then the meditation is haphazard. So the first commitment is to simply be still. And the most rudimentary understanding of that is to be still in body. So whenever you sit down to meditate, find a place that's a way of sitting that's comfortable enough to where you can sit without having to adjust your posture every 5 minutes, so you can really be still. And the commitment you make is that you're not moving your body every time your mind gets a little anxious or wants to move. If you adjust your body every time your mind wants you to adjust your body, you're going to be adjusting your body all the time. So you just let it relax into a state of ease. And there's a commitment to being still. Because if the body remains still, the mind will eventually follow. A deeper understanding of this first commitment to be still is to simply notice and feel the sense of stillness already existing within you. So you're not trying to make your mind still. You're not trying to stop thinking, because you can't control your mind for very long. So we're not trying to make things be still that we can't make be still. We're noticing that there's a state of already existing stillness. It's not something you make happen. It's simply something that you notice. That there is a stillness, or you could also think of it as a quietness. Awareness itself is already quiet and still. You don't have to make it quiet and still. It's already that way. You're just noticing that the natural state of awareness is quiet, is still. And you're allowing yourself to feel into that quietness. Remember, it's a very light touch, a very easy attitude. So one could talk a lot about just this first commitment to be still. It's its own exploration. It has incredible depth to it, even though it sounds very simple. Noticing the quiet, allowing yourself to open to it. Now, the second commitment very much goes along with the first, and it's simply to allow all of your experience to be exactly the way that it is. To allow all of your experience, to allow this moment to be exactly the way that it is the second commitment. In fact, it is the heart of the art of meditation, allowing everything to be the way that it is. Now you can think of this as your task, that this is something you're supposed to do, meaning I'm supposed to allow everything to be as it is, which is not the way that I mean it. Or you can understand this piece of guidance as a way of noticing that your own natural awareness is already and always in a state of allowing everything to be as it is. So again, this isn't so much something I'm telling you as a mind or an ego to do. It's simply something you notice. And then by noticing that awareness is allowing everything to be as it is, you begin to participate in it. And again, it can be very easy for the mind to misunderstand this. The mind can think that its job is to allow everything to be, but that is not the way that I'm intending you to understand it. All you're doing is noticing that underneath whatever your mind may be doing, there's a natural state of awareness that is always and only in a state of allowing everything to be. And you notice it. Notice that quality of awareness that's allowing everything to be as it is, but also allow yourself to feel it. Feel that quality of letting go, of control. Feel into that already relaxed state of awareness. And occasionally, or maybe quite often, you might find your attention wandering. It could wander into the mind or imagination or into something else. The third commitment is simply when you notice your mind has wandered, you just notice it's wandered first. And then you can either experiment, see what works best for you. You can either, in a very light and easy way, just bring your attention back to the breath for a few moments. Or you can simply return attention back to the natural state of awareness, which the natural state of awareness is open and quiet and allowing everything to be. And so that's a commitment too. When your mind wanders, you just return attention either back to the breath in the lower belly or to the sense of awareness itself. And you return your attention as simply as you can without being impatient or frustrated because you got lost for the 100th time in a half-hour meditation. You want to really be careful that when you bring your attention back, that you have no kind of condemning attitude about being lost. That you just return your attention to awareness in the most unadorned, simple, and compassionate way.
So, my voice sounds flat compared to all the resonance that they had on his voice and that. No reverb. The what struck me in his initial comments was making yourself available. And I like that phrase because in my counseling, that's very much the way I see what I do is during that hour to make a commitment to be available to the person that I'm counseling, to be as wholeheartedly present as I can, and as much as possible to embody that non-judgmental awareness. And that's where I find sitting really helps me because I'm cultivating that availability, only now it's being available to myself, to my own internal world and my own internal experience. And so that's something that I hadn't really put together as succinctly as he did. And so I'm very grateful for that. The second thing that really struck me as an instruction that I'm going to steal, because in seminary they said you're never going to come up with anything original, so steal from the best. And was when he said, let yourself find the part of you that's already accepting what's happening. And damn, that's elegant because it really ties in something I try to encourage, which is that awareness already is non-judgmental and awareness is already there. So just like the sky doesn't decide that rain gets to fall through and birds get to fly, but bird shit doesn't get to go through and pollution doesn't get to go through. No, everything passes through. Nothing's impeded. Everything is allowed. And this fits into the importance of where you put your attention. Because what we notice in Yoga Nidra is we say, okay, let your body find where you feel cold, and you'll find a part of your body where it feels cold. There's coldness as a sensation in your body. If it says, let yourself feel the heat, you'll feel the heat. Well, we're so much involved in the activity of the mind that we never settle back into the stillness that's already there. And so I love that as an invitation to let yourself kind of explore, where am I already at peace? It's not something you have to create, it's there. But it's like in one of the Psalms, or not that, I think it may be Jeremiah, where he talks about the still small voice and about how there's earthquakes and there's all this stuff and all this turmoil, and then the still small voice speaks. Well, that's very much about what we discover. I always call meditation the jagged re-entry, because as I go through letting go all the concerns of the day and the tugs and the pulls and the fears and anxieties of the day, that it's very loud and it's very distracting. And it's hard to feel that peace underneath. But as you begin to settle, things begin to quiet, and you don't give those things attention. That quiet part of you begins to reveal itself. So I found that a very sophisticated cue, and I will steal that. So other people, questions, comments?
Robert?
I really appreciated his easy, gentle, almost passive, but not really passive. But there was a tone to it that was opening to followers, to fellow, to people who want to join this flow. And it reminds me of your flow, but it's an individual, of course, Bart. And the both of you have convincing ways of opening doors for us. Thank you for for letting us listen to this alternative locution in how to help us slide into this flow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Robert. And one of the things that I'm studying now is about the voice in your head and how tone impacts the way we respond. And I was just reading it before we got in here, and it said that when a tone is an angry tone or a controlling tone, the part of your brain that receives it is the amygdala. And that's where all your trauma is. And I remember people used to remember John Bradshaw and the family and all the things he did on recovery. He was a former Southern Baptist preacher, and he always brought his message with that tone of anger and 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 there were people who couldn't listen to him because they got triggered just by the tone of his voice. So, uh, apropos of that, when you speak to yourself, Robert, be sure that you have a similar tone and a similar quality to your voice that invites the other parts of you to feel safe in revealing themselves to you. So that inner, remember when I had that insight about 6 months ago to create the environment internally that I've always tried to get my partner to be. Well, why can't you just do this? Well, why can't you just do this? And it suddenly dawned on me, no, I need to do that for me. I need to do that for me because I can't do it for her until I can do it for me. So that's again what we're practicing. This is how you learn to listen by creating that safe, sacred space internally for all the parts of you to start coming forward. Being like, okay, I'm not going to get blasted if I show this. So, anybody else? Thank you.
One of the things that I really learned this time, I've had problems with my nerves going all the way down my right leg. And I said, there's no way I can sit through this. And then I went into the flow that I've been rubbing my legs and going down all the way to my feet, and it had helped. But then I realized that I could just be warm with my hand. I don't have to hold it. I don't have to rub it. And it really, and one of my challenges was I kept saying, there's got to be some way I can control this better to where I can focus. And this really helped me to do it tonight.
Right. And that's exactly why mindfulness is being used in pain management, is because you can't get rid of the pain, but you can change your relationship to it. And so we tend to scream at our bodies for being hurt and want to control it. And that just makes it close down even further. But creating that open, inviting space, I was having the same experience, just so you know. I put blocks underneath my legs um, and was just easing the discomfort for it, not pushing it further than it really wanted to go. But you're exactly right. When you create space and warmth and compassion, totally changes your relationship to the pain.
Right.
So here, what part of my brain is having this experience? Is it the traumatized part of my brain? Because then I feel like the pain is my abuser. So think about it. The traumatized part wants to be in control because I felt loss of control when I was being abused. So I'm back in that mindset. When I accept it as something that simply is, it's not being done to me. It's not like we said in yesterday's lecture. We tend to think that pain is a punishment that God has sent us for some sin that we've committed, that we're trying to imagine, what did I do to deserve this? It's always in our unconscious, and begin to say, no, to be alive is to be in pain. That's not what makes us different. That you can't find anybody who's not in pain. Okay? And so when we shift from that um, sense that it needs to be changed, it needs to be fought, that it's somehow failing in me, that I'm not able to control it, to simply, this is where I am. This is what is in this moment.
Well, and it was like the very beginning of it. I realized that I was so tense that I had bundled up everything. and then once, and then going back to that and saying, let it be, let it go, let it go. And then it kind of moved into the next piece of it. But I said, do I go around this tense all the time? No wonder my body's saying, give it a break.
But you can't be painted, not unconsciously tense against it. That's what the body does. This, we have to understand, is a natural response to discomfort. It's not always the most skillful response to discomfort. So we're reprogramming the body to have a different response than its natural response. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Congratulations.
Very similarly to that.
Okay, Billy.
Very, very similarly to that. I go through life and I don't really listen to my body. I don't hear it communicating with me because it's so loud outside of this space. And so I found that as I went into that quiet space and as I started trying to listen to my body, that's when my body became very loud. And, he mentioned about movement, about finding that stillness. I couldn't find the stillness because that's when I realized I had not been listening to my body. Because I'm so loud out there doing so many things that I've not taken the moment to be present for myself to address those different things that now I realize I'm gonna have to go out here and figure out how to do that.
Okay. Great. Yep. Okay. So let me distinguish in Matthew, this is partly what my journey with you has been teaching me, is that a lot of traditional meditation has been oriented towards finding altered states of awareness. And when you're looking to find these highly refined states, any movement in the body distracts you, okay? So there's a carryover into contemporary meditation with that kind of a bias that we're looking for something outside that is the outside world is going to be a distraction from this place where I am. As we begin to move more to bringing spirituality into everyday life with our eyes open and being engaged with what's going on, and we're becoming more body-centered in our therapies, you're going to discover that there's two different kinds of things that you want to address in terms of stillness. One is that when I'm riding in my car between Shreveport and Texarkana, don't turn on the radio. But if I have a thought that's uncomfortable, that's embarrassing, or that I want, my hand automatically reaches for the radio knob. It's so funny to see that happen because that's been such a conditioned distraction for my own internal world. That's the thing you don't want to act on. You want to watch those conditioned unconscious movements of the body. Now, movement that is compassionate to your body, like you were saying, Billy, I listen to my body. My body is saying, this is uncomfortable for me to do, and I need to address it. That you pay attention to. So one of my favorite teaching stories is one of a guy, the Jewish high holidays, not only do they not eat, they don't drink. And in Israel, the temperature will get up to the temperature of a sauna. It'll be 130 degrees in the synagogue. And so this young man is, you don't drink all day, from sun up to sundown, nothing to drink. And so come about noontime, and he is just overcome with the desire to get a drink. So he goes out to the well, and he fights with himself. No, I've got to obey the rules. So he goes back in and sits down, and about 15 minutes later, he's back out there, and then at war with himself and going back in. There's no rabbi out there watching him. And he stops him and he says, son, he says, go ahead and take a drink of water. He says the whole purpose of not drinking water is so that you can give all your attention to God. But if your body is so thirsty, how are you going to hear God? First address your thirst, then go, okay? And that's that kind of balance. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. There's a continuum. And so what you're wanting to still are the the more habitual ways that you move in response to signals from your body. But there are other times that you really need to address it. So balance, and finding your own way. That's why the Buddha says, seek your own path with diligence. You know, that's his suggestion. That's what he's got to say. May be right, may be wrong, may work for you, may not work for you, but still sit on your cushion.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
And Matthew, I loved hearing that you have also been Bart's teacher.
Oh, well, I don't know anything about that. All I know is,
Well, he attributed learning also from you.
Right. With your telling me about your difficulties in sitting and then discovering that if you did something physical to ground yourself before that, which totally fits with what's going on in polyvagal theory. And then I started looking deeper and I found literature that said, yeah, there are people who can't. I forget the guy who said, when you ask your mind to be present in your body and your body is screaming, it's like inviting someone into hell. And it doesn't matter whether that's a physical hell or a panic attack. It's saying that needs to be addressed first, okay? Then sit. And so sitting is not the only way to self-regulate. And sometimes self-regulation means moving your body, taking a walk, getting out in nature. So that's the more skillful response than trying to do sitting at that point.
yeah, that's what seems to be the art of the whole thing is just what you were saying about the balance of sometimes it's this compassionate thing to move your body, and sometimes it's the compassionate thing to have some discipline and not move your body. And there's nobody on the planet that can make that decision except you. And so quit like going by these rules of like right and wrong and all that stuff. Yeah, it was good. Mhm.
And if you notice at bottom, I'm a pragmatist. And what I mean by that is the same thing that Jesus meant by the fruits shall you know them. If you do it and you get the result that you're calmer, then keep doing that. Okay. It's like I have clients in recovery who drink non-alcoholic beer and their sponsors just go ape shit or, oh no, you can't do that. You're going to get drunk. And she's been doing this for about 3 years. And I said, look, you don't ever get drunk. It doesn't ever trigger that for you. So even though they say that's a rule, for you, that doesn't need to be a rule. And, so I don't find those absolute things that we're looking for. This is always right.
He was talking about early on about, paying attention to your breathing, and when you have a thought or whatever that comes in, pay attention to how you're breathing at that moment. And I noticed that I was doing really good and relaxed, and a thought came of my daughter's in-laws who are coming next week for the baby's birthday, and he's a Baptist preacher and they never say bad words, and I say bad words all the time.
All the fucking time.
all the fucking time. And I'm thinking, oh shit, how am I going to deal with these people? And I noticed I had stopped breathing totally.
Yes. There you go.
And so that was a good. I mean, that's a simple, very simple but straightforward way. It's just when I'm rushing around and trying to please everybody, I'm definitely not breathing. So it's a definite practice for me.
so intertwined, your emotion and your breath.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Anyway.
Let's finish up this note. This will be the last one. So a person to study this on this is a guy named Stephen Levine, and he calls it soft belly meditation. And I just read today that in a Chinese medicine text that they want you to bring your awareness down into the floor of your pelvis, because we spend too much time in our heads and in our hearts. It's gotten us out of balance because we're not grounded. And so having that, and man, for the first time in my life, when I sat today, I felt like my ass was one with the earth. I was so fucking solid in the earth, you couldn't have moved me, all right? And I'm like, damn, 50 years, and finally I'm sitting on my cushion. So don't give up. But that feeling of allowing that awareness to come in begins to bring everything together, begins to integrate it, all right? So the first place, just think, here's how this works. When you hear someone in the store go, God damn it, and smack their kid, what happens to you? You stop breathing. Everybody clenches and does this who's ever been hurt as a kid. So when you're doing that to yourself, your body is responding exactly the way you did when you were a kid being hollered at, okay? And that's how we undo trauma in our body. That's what this teacher was saying. They don't call it trauma. They don't encourage you to look at it. They say, look what happens to your body. And bring that awareness into the breath and reassure yourself of your safety. Okay? And one of the things he says, the reason why we meditate with our eyes open is because it keeps us from constantly scanning for threats. God, is that delicious? I mean, I just got chills all the way up. You see it on my arms because of the truth of that we're always hypervigilant. That's part of PTSD, is looking for threat. So as we cultivate the ability to be in space without scanning for threat, because you're going to find what you look for. So if I'm scanning for threat, I'll find threat. But if I'm scanning for safety, that's what I'm encouraging you all to do more. Don't look for threat, scan for safety. Scan for the part of you that's non-judgmental. Scan for the part of you that's at peace. Just take control of the scanner. Does that make sense?
I can feel it in my eyes. I can feel my gaze being, my eyes like a little wider if I'm sitting. And then when I realize that I'm intently staring, I can soften my gaze and my whole body relaxes.
Perfect. And that's exactly the phrase, soft gaze. Soft gaze. Yeah. God, this was fun tonight. It really was. So I don't know why, but just it's always good to hear from a master, and opens things up. So let's go ahead, almost out, Sugar, and
One round?
whatever you want to do.
One round of Om
I'm
together.
not in control.
Oh!
I don't really mean that.
Oh,
We know who's really in control, don't we, Linnell?
No,
yeah, or it could be the
It's actually
dog.
not.
The dog, right?
Dog.
Yeah, we're his meat puppet.
Yeah.
Thought way.
Deep breath in.
Love you all. Thank you.
Adyashanti. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. That was great. Lovely.
Thank you.
Hey,
Namaste.
see you.
Namaste.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a great week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.